Hello and welcome to our Flip video lesson 1.04, Free to Flourish. So when you're going back through, if you need to watch any of the recordings, they will be there obviously once this recording finishes. You can always click on any of these links as needed. So learning objectives of this lesson, you're going to notice how these learning objectives kind of overlap with 1.03. So we're just going to go more into the accomplishments and characteristics of the Persian Empire and its leaders, the importance of Athenians' victory in the Persian Wars. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Oracle of Delphi, and then we're going to talk some more about the First and Second Persian Wars. Table of contents, introduction, the Persian Wars and the Empire, and then also adding in Athenians' impact in that. Student guide, pages 275 to 277. And I will note there's not a lot of writing space there, so you may want to get another piece of paper and staple it to your student guide. Important vocabulary, you're going to use this vocabulary to help you with the understanding of the lesson. And then Human Odyssey reading pages 306 to 309. Free to Flourish, introduction. The Persian Empire had grown and power throughout Western Asia and even spread into parts of Europe and Africa. Wanting to put even more lands under his control, the Persian king Darius invaded Greece. The Athenian army defeated the Persians at the Battle of Marathon through cunning and military strategy. But the Athenians realized they needed to be even stronger to defend themselves against future invasions. They began preparing for war by building the largest navy in Greece. Slider's not flipping there. There we go. Athenians during war. So the Athenians faced great challenges in protecting their home and their lands, as anyone during wartime. But you can see this was just a huge, long, drawn-out war with lots of fighting back and forth. And as we've discussed, a lot of ancient civilizations were based around war because they were constantly trying to gain new land, gain new power. And in this case, it kind of went back and forth a little bit. Mood in Athens at the end of the war. So planning and strategy paid off for Athens. Athens had turned back a foreign invader. Poets and artists inspired Athenians by reminding them of successful battles, and confidence in institutions and abilities led to a golden age in Athens. And a golden age kind of means that time of peace, that peaceful, prosperous age. If Persia had won, should be if Persians, sorry, a little typo there, or Persia. Persia might have had a greater influence in the West than Greece. Athens would not have had a golden age and would not have produced the art, architecture, and so on that it did. And we might not have the Olympics, marathon races, and so on. So, as we've talked about in lessons before, so much we've gotten from ancient Athens that is part of our culture now, part of our history now. That certainly may have been a huge change in the way we live today. So go ahead and open your student guide to page 275. And as I said, there's not a lot of writing space there, unfortunately. So you may need to get an extra piece of paper, or if you write small, you can write along the edges. That's up to you. So question number 1. How did Darius first approach the Greeks to gain their lands? What was their response? So Darius sent messengers to Athens and Sparta to communicate his intention to take over their lands. He offered them the opportunity to surrender and avoid war. The Greeks responded by killing the messengers. Darius then began his attack of Greece. And so just a quick side note there, if we want to get messages across today, we call, we email, we text. There's lots of ways to get messages to faraway places. Back in ancient civilizations, there wasn't that immediate response. So they sent messengers. So there was that time travel, that time between the messengers leaving one place and the messengers getting to another, and then that time frame for them to get back. And then, of course, there was also that danger along the way that maybe a messenger would never get there, or that as the messengers were going and they transferred to different messengers, maybe that message would get misconstrued. But in this case, the messengers made it. But unfortunately, once they gave the message, the Greeks sent a strong message back by killing the messengers. Question number 2. Where did the Persian army enter Greece? What city was most at risk and why? The Persian army crossed the Mediterranean Sea and landed at the plain of Marathon. Athens was at the greatest risk because it was close to Marathon. It had a small army and it was not prepared for war. So even though they were constantly, preparing for battle, They were small and not fully prepared. Although Athenians were unprepared for war, what three things did they have in their favor? The Athenians had the home advantage, so they knew the land, they knew the terrain. They were fighting to protect their homes and families. Okay, so they knew the terrain, they knew the landscape, but they also had a value in it. They didn't want to lose their land, they didn't want to lose their families. They had a strong general who could analyze the enemy, and find weaknesses during battle. So they had that smart leader. And they had a special fighting formation called a phalanx, moving in a tightly packed group with their shields held together to form a solid wall. They blocked the Persians' arrows and advanced close enough to use their own weapons. So imagine that, and that military formation was used in battles in the future as well. It was learned, but they were very, very tightly packed with their shields held high, so the arrows couldn't get in to wound their army, and so they were able to advance much quicker than soldiers falling as arrows were flying. Question number 4: what was the Spartans' role in the Battle of Marathon? The Athenians sent a runner to ask Sparta for help, but the Spartans refused to fight the Persians, leaving Athens to fight alone. So they were not allies in this case at all. Sparta just did not help. Question number 5. When Athenians discovered silver ore in their lands, what did their citizens decide to do with their new wealth and why? Themistocles convinced the citizens to use the wealth to build a fleet of fighting ships. He was convinced that the Persian Empire would try to take over Greece again. So that's a key point right there. Explain the role of the Oracle of Delphi, and I know this was discussed in lesson 1.03, but just kind of to reiterate, the Greeks believed that the oracle spoke the words of the god Apollo. The message that she passed on told the Athenians that a battle was coming and how to prepare for it and fight it. Her message supported the position of Themistocles. I don't know why that word is hard for me to say as well. It's those Greek names. Anyways, so that Oracle of Delphi, remember, was this kind of priestess, a female kind of priest, a female deity, and they went to her with advice whether to proceed or not proceed in matters that involved Athenians. And she said, "Hey, listen, you need to prepare because things are coming." All right, turn to page 276. Marathon was a remarkable battle and an important turning point for the Greeks. Yet, just 10 years later, the Persians threatened again, and the Greeks realized they would have to band together to combat their common enemy. Question number 1. When did the Persian Empire next attempt to conquer Greece? Who led this attack? Why did they think they would be successful? So the next attack on Greece by the Persian Empire came 10 years after the Battle of Marathon. Xerxes, the son of Darius and ruler of Persia, led the attack. Xerxes thought he could conquer Greece for several reasons. He had increased his army to 20,000 men, and he thought because Greek city-states were fighting each other, they would not unite in a war. So remember, those city-states really didn't get along because they were constantly struggling for land around them. But that didn't happen here. The greater need for larger area became the higher point. Okay, question number 2. Describe the Persian invasion of Greece. The Persian army invaded from the north and had to move through a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae. King Leonidas, a Spartan, moved much of his army there. It was a good place to try to hold off the Persians. Although he could not stop the Persians, Leonidas delayed their advance by several days, giving the Athenians time to evacuate the city of Athens and prepare for a naval battle. So this preparation from a land battle to a sea battle really was an important point. How did the Greek navy fare against the Persian navy? The powerful Greek navy lured the Persians into a narrow strait and defeated them soundly. Remember, they kind of had that home court advantage. So again, vocabulary is key to understanding. Some key words that you need to know about. Turning point, a time at which a decisive change in a situation occurs, especially one with beneficial results. So that can happen in anything, but a lot of times we talk about this turning point in war where, the tides turn from one side winning to the other. Marathon is the Battle of Marathon, took place in 490 BC during the first Persian invasion of Greece. The Battle of Salamis. The Battle of Salamis was a naval battle fought between an alliance of Greek city-states under Themistocles and the Persian Empire under King Xerxes. And then Navy was this branch of a nation's armed services that conducts military operations at sea. Reading is key to understanding comprehension. As always, it's really, really important that you're doing your reading for these lessons. It ties everything together. Okay, so it's pages 306 to 309. And here we come to our quote section. War is a series of catastrophes which results in victory. Probably no truer word said there, right? Victory for one and failure for the other, I suppose. And here we come to the end of our flip video. The secret to your future is hidden in your daily routine. Always do your best. Thank you so much for joining me and have an amazing day.